Karen Simpson is running for Maryland State Delegate District 31B. Karen, thank you so much for coming on my program and talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about where 31B is.
Okay, a little bit of a spider. So you have Pasadena, all of Pasadena. So that's the largest portion. There's a little bit of Lake Shore and Rivera Beach, and then there's a little piece actually that has a Baltimore zip code, although it's Anne Arundel County, and that's the Fort Smallwood. Then you have the two legs of Glen Burnie, but the middle part is Ned's, so that's not mine. A little bit of Millersville, which is actually where I live, and there's a little bit of Gambrels as well.
Gotcha. So what was it for you, and let me back up first, what have you been doing for the past, for your work? And what was it that, made you want to throw your hat in the race for Maryland State Delegate?
Well, little did I know that I was preparing myself for this. I had no idea. I never thought that I was going to be running for office. Like a lot of the women who jumped in, I had no idea that this was where I was going. But I started with doing residential treatment for dually diagnosed. It means they had substance abuse, mental health issues, or they were developmentally disabled. And from there, I started working for the state in 1992, and I started out at Child Protective Services. As I did both continuing, and from there, I went on to the Citizens Review Board for Children, and that was more of a government oversight, which I think it makes you perfect for a delegate, is to do government oversight. So it's pretty much to take a look at legislation, develop regulations, policies, all this stuff, of how to review child welfare.
Right.
And look at child welfare and see whether or not they're meeting the letter of the law. Because unfortunately, the state can't tell people what's going on because of confidentiality laws. So folks are saying, well, nobody's happy. People who report it don't think you went far enough. The people, of course, that you're investigating thinks you went too far. You get the citizens in, take a look at what's actually going on, and make a ruling as to whether or not you need to change laws and advocate for those laws. So part of it was getting volunteers together to both review the cases throughout all 24 jurisdictions, and then also go to Annapolis and advocate for new laws, such as taking weapons away from individuals in the instance of a domestic violence, or making perpetrators leave the home, because we knew that if they stayed, then the woman was more likely at a higher risk, and of course would be saying everything is fine because they're right there, but just take them out for a short period of time, and then you're able to get to the truth and be able to get them safe. So some of that legislation over time, and then from there I went and started writing grants for the state, so got some federal dollars in for a House of Ruth, so domestic violence. Yes, you keep hearing the same theme over and over again. And paired that actually with a fatherhood program, which was really kind of cool. And from there, I went to the election board, and that was just, I still don't even truly understand how I ended up there, but I ended up at the election board. And so I was, learned all about campaign finance. So don't tell me I should be really good at campaign finance, because that's my biggest fear. It's like, please don't make any mistakes on the campaign finance. I'll be so embarrassed because I worked for it.
Because you worked, yeah.
Yes, I was the deputy director with Jared. So I'm not now. I then I had a friend of mine that wanted me to go back to Baltimore, so she pretty much found me the job at the retirement agency. So I train retirement coordinators throughout the state. So if you're looking at laws, if you're following this, so I know child welfare laws, I know criminal law from the child welfare, I also know procurement law from managing some, contracts through the election board, and also previously, so I knew some of the finance aspect. And then on top of that, I know election law, and now I know retirement law, and in the retirement law is the personnel law. So I do feel that my experience with the state has definitely qualified me for a state delegate job that's looking at all the laws, all the agencies. If you look at the various different agencies I've been at, I don't have too many more to learn about.
Not only that, but you've worked on other campaigns, correct?
Yes, I have worked on other campaigns.
You're a community activist.
Yes, I've marched. and like I said, I was looking for someone else to do this. I was like, hey, here's a slot. There's 2, positions. I'll support you. I'll be your biggest fan. I'll be I'll be the biggest volunteer that you have. And they were like, no, you should do it. You've been doing this forever. I mean, I had gone to Virginia, knocked on doors there. I had gone to Pennsylvania, knocked on doors there.
Wow.
It's very different from your seat to this seat.
Right.
And I did
when you're knocking on doors and doing all this stuff, now you're the person that's running.
Right. I had no idea how different this seat is from where I was, I had an inkling. I mean, you've talked about, campaign finance laws and do they need to be reformed? It is extremely expensive. And from being someone who's a pastor's wife, being someone who's done child welfare and I really know how to be very fiscally responsible. It's like, this is a lot of money that you have to get together. The signs alone, $600,000, whatever,
like $15 a piece.
Yeah.
Is what I've heard, yeah.
Or you get the biggest sign, for those signs on the side of the road, they're $1,000 and some dollars.
Yeah.
And you have to have that or nobody knows who you are.
Right.
So they're necessary.
So what are you looking to change about that then?
I think there needs to be some level of public financing. I think there needs to be some level of cap. It's very unfair that you have these individuals that are very well connected or themselves very rich. And let's face it, it doesn't mean just because you have a lot of money that you're out of touch, but you need a balance. And how are the people who don't have a ton of money going to get into the state legislature? And that's where you're supposed to be representing all people.
Everybody, not just the rich. So that was what I was going to ask you. Do you think that people should not be, do you think that a candidate should not be able to donate to their own campaign?
It would be nice if you couldn't.
Because say you have like $1 million business owner, Donald Trump, right? Okay, but let's do it on a local level. You have $1 million business owner here that owns a restaurant or whatever, a construction company, whatever it may be. And they can afford to put, $25,000 into their state delegate race. I mean, $25,000 for a state delegate race is quite a big amount of money.
There's someone else that I could potentially be running against that has $83,000 of their own money in there.
Right, but what I mean is, to be able to donate that amount of money most people donate $10 or $15, and for you to be able to do that, that's not fair for other people that, are hard blue collar workers, and I'm not saying that you are. But other blue-collar workers that want to make a difference in the state house that cannot do that because they can't afford to put $6,000 in or $10,000 in. Meanwhile, other people can.
I know. And
so, what do you think should be done about that?
My husband and I are not rolling in money, or people that are rolling in money. We don't have a ton, but we're actually okay. I think of other people. I have met other people who make a lot less money than I do that I've met on the campaign trail that would make excellent candidates. How are they supposed to get that money, together if they're not connected?
So, are you running a grassroots campaign then?
I am running it, and I think, what I'm hoping is that we're going to show them that you don't need all of that money in order to get elected. For people to know who you are and to be relatable. I mean, I do think that knocking on doors and meeting the voters is the most important aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, let's talk about, speaking of knocking on doors and delegates and who else is in the race, let's talk about former Anne Arundel County Executive John Leopold, who's running for state delegate, who said in a Capital Gazette article, that he has done his time when it comes to what he was convicted for when he was in office. So what's your take on that as being somebody who is your opponent, because you already won your primary?
And I've met him from... campaign finance. So I was at campaign. I was, there when he was in.
What do you think?
What do I think? Remember, my background is Child Protective Services, and I think that, and I am a pastor's wife, and he was an atheist when I met him, so I'm kind of the religious person of the two of us. I think you could be very forgiving, but that doesn't mean so in child welfare, if somebody abused my kid, would I say, oh, gosh, we really got to go out on a date tonight. Okay, you can watch him because I know you're sorry. you're telling me you want to put him right back in the same job, right. In which, and in all fairness, he may be a great guy. He could be very forgiving, but perhaps you've already, you've compromised your position.
Do you think it comes to a point where you know what you're doing is wrong and you're still doing it? Because I mean, if that's what the case, I mean, if you know what you're doing is wrong and you still apologize about it, years later, what do you think about that?
Well, I don't want to spend all day, talking about him. I will say that the things that I see is while he says, sorry, that's in the past, I don't get the impression that he has a full awareness. You get, people say, well, they're crying, they're upset. Well, of course they got caught.
Right.
I don't have a problem with his security detail making overtime. The lack of awareness is being aware of, and as a person in government, you have, whether you know it or not, powers, and you have to respect those powers and not take advantage of the people that are working within state government and assuming, anything. When you are a boss or, you are the supervisor, not making this assumption or asking people to do things that are outside of their job description. If you want to get back on me, I'm not going to be doing that. For me, I understand that there are boundaries, which is what the bottom line is. It's not just about whether something's criminal or not. Did you destroy the trust? And should I give you the keys to the car? I could be very loving and forgiving of somebody, but that doesn't mean I'm going to put them in that same role. Because in essence, aren't you, it's just like with child welfare. If somebody is, a sexual predator, you're not going to, and they abuse their kid, say, I know you feel really bad about that. Please don't do that again. I mean, we would all think that was crazy, wouldn't we?
Right.
We'd be like, you wouldn't then say, well, yeah, you should get your daycare, back, even though we know you've done this. In essence, you're an enabler.
Right.
Right? I mean, I'm going to go with a
sense, yeah.
counseling background.
Right.
I don't think that the voters or anyone is doing him a favor by saying, yeah, you're okay, you've served your time. And I'm the Me Too candidate. I mean, I was raped when I was in college. I mean, it's not easy to talk about, but there are a lot of women out there who can't talk about it. My first husband, I'm a domestic violence survivor from my first husband, and I don't think, like many people who hurt others, I don't think he gets it. I don't think he understands that just bringing somebody in and saying someone likes you. You talk about the rape culture. I just went to a candidates forum for rape culture. That's what this is about. It's about saying, to someone, just because other people like you, just because you can bring in a whole bunch of people to say that you're a nice person, doesn't mean you didn't hurt someone else. And there are steps to be taken when you have hurt others. And saying, I've done my time, I'm okay. Really looking at, did you abuse the power given to you? And if so, why are we going to give that back? And my goal is to be respectful. That's what I have been as a supervisor, as a program manager, is understanding those boundaries. What is in somebody's job description? If I had a personal illness, I would get the care that I need. My staff are not responsible for that care.
Right.
Like you were talking about that you've been sick before, right? Did you go to work and get everybody else sick?
Right.
Right? Did you take care of yourself? Or did you expect that someone else was responsible for that who really doesn't have that role? It's called boundaries. It's taking responsibility for yourself and your actions and understanding that this is a bigger role. This isn't Karen Simpson's show. This is, being a delegate's not about, being me. It's all the people that I'm representing.
Right.
It's all the people in 31B. There are other women, there are lots of women that are in 31B. And they want someone who's going to be a voice. Not someone who's just promising to be a voice, but who will actually be a voice.
Well, let's talk about that. You said that you're representing everyone in 31B, and that is your district, right? But technically, you're going to be voting on legislation that's not going to affect just 31B. It's going to affect all of Maryland, right? So Going into the state house as delegate, what do you see as your biggest issue and what you want to go in there and start your feet just running on? What's that one issue for you?
I think that we made a lot of strides this year for issues about women, but we can go a lot farther. As I've said, our government is currently 77% men, and there's just a lot of legislation that affect women and children, people, who don't have a lot of means. We're talking about campaign finance, and we just don't realize the effect that's on them. There's a lot of legislation that just gets stalled in committees because it doesn't have the faces. And it doesn't have the power because, I fully understand. If someone doesn't have that experience, maybe they don't understand how important it is,
right?
To help people. So for me, it continues to be the child welfare aspect. It continues to be, women. It continues to be voices who, don't have a voice themselves. The mental health. We have a huge mental health crisis, in Maryland. We've got a lot of young people who suffer.
How do you deal with that mental health crisis?
I think we have to expand the care. We have to, as a legislative body, we can take some of that stigma away by providing the services, by being honest with people in our own care and our own families, that just like, you get a cold, you go to the doctor and you get well. I mean, the reason I'm here with my background with the rape culture and what happened to me is because I got help.
Right.
Should I be ashamed of that? No, the person who hurt me should be ashamed, not me, but I got the care that I needed, and I think that care should be available to more people. I think there are places like the school system that we can have some of that care. We're putting, you want to talk about victim blaming? We do that with the school shootings. Well, why weren't you nicer to the kid?
Right.
Well, why didn't we have the services? Where are the adults in this? Why are we requiring the kids to be, solve their own problem? Where are the adults in this?
So, okay, let's talk about a little bit about the environment. Especially, let's talk about development because that definitely affects 31B quite a bit.
Yes, because we have a lot of water.
Yeah. Smart development, when it's smart, I feel like is a good thing. But it doesn't seem like, although it's being called smart development in Anne Arundel County, that is actually happening. So what do you think the answer is for our rapidly growing area?
Aren't words funny? Just kind of throw it. I always find bills really funny when you look at them and you read them, and sometimes the titles are so misleading as to what's in it, whether or not it really helps somebody or doesn't help somebody. So labels are very, very important.
You put something smart in front of it and everything, everybody thinks that it's the new millennial type of idea.
American Patriot,
yeah.
Right, all of those things, and it's got to be good, right? It's got to be out. Just call them all apple pie, and we'll pass them all, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to the environment, I think it's important to remember that this is not a Republican, it's not a Democratic issue. Is the environment. The environment is everybody. I grew up in Maryland. I love crabs. Do you love crabs? If we're not going to have them if we don't take care of our environment. I drive around knocking on doors and I'm noticing, wow, there are a lot of houses that it'd be great if we could bring in one of those flip this house community. There are, talk about smart development. You can have places within our community that could be, renovated and make them really nice houses. Why are we always looking at tearing down trees and building up brand new communities?
Yeah, you can just renovate what's already there.
Yeah, you could just run away. And
I've never heard that answer before.
Really? There's so many.
Never heard that answer.
Oh my gosh, there's so many gorgeous. And this area is so historic. There's so many places and houses that have been there for a very long time. And some of these houses, you don't get the stuff in the new house. Like how many of you have a laundry chute in a brand new house? You got them in a lot of the old houses, or there's little dormer windows or the little crawl spaces and all these other kind of things that make them really unique, that make them, they were a perfect starter home for somebody. Why can't they be a starter home for somebody again? I have a 27-year-old. I don't know how old you are, but I have a 27-year-old. It's just so expensive to live here.
It is, yeah.
And find a home. Should you have to get 20 college kids to all live in a place in order to afford it? Does that make sense?
Right.
So I think there are other ways, there are other places, throughout the country that rather than looking at expanding, everything, have looked at what we already have and what we can do with it. It's called recycling, right? It's kind of cool. I do like about
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
I really do like it. Anne Arundel County is pretty, I came from Hartford County. I like that Anne Arundel County, no matter what you have, you put it in the yellow bin and it's taken care of. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Why can't we do it with our housing?
Yeah, right. Makes sense. Karen, we've talked about a couple issues here, but how can people get in contact with you or go and take a look at your views on other stuff that we haven't had the opportunity to talk about today? How can people volunteer? How can they donate? How can people just learn more about Karen?
Okay, so if there's anything that I've said that triggered you and you want to know more information about, you can send me an email, Karen for Maryland, spelled out, so Karen for Maryland @gmail.com. Or you can go to my website. My resume is all there on my website. So that is KarenForMaryland.com. And that's the same for Facebook, Karen for Maryland.
Got it.
So.
Sounds a lot like caring for Maryland.
Yeah.
Karen for Maryland.
I do care for Maryland.
I can
very
see.
much. I love Maryland. I care for the people that are around me. It is my goal to bring us together as a community, to realize that we are all neighbors, and we can all help each other. I mean, it's really, when's the last block party that you went to?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it right after this.
Sounds
Her
good.
name is Karen Simpson. She's Karen for Maryland, and she's running for Maryland State Delegate District 31B in the Pasadena-Severna Park area. My name is Joseph Omo for the Arundel Patriot. Check out all of our other candidate interviews at thearundelpatriot.org and on our Facebook page. Thank you guys so much for watching, and Karen, thank you so much for accepting the interview. We certainly appreciate
Absolutely.
it. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, you're welcome on the program anytime that you want. If you win state delegate, you're welcome on to, that's a big thing. A lot of people are not talking after they win. We want people to have town halls, and we want to learn about what you're doing.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
us. So
yes. This
come on
is
back
just
on
the
my show
beginning.
whenever you want. Absolutely. Karen, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Definitely. All right.